Welcome to the 200th episode of the podcast Working Drummer, featuring a roundtable discussion with Seth Rausch, Hubert Payne, Harry Myrie, and Travis McNabb, as well as a one-on-one interview with Nashville session great Chris McHugh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 200th episode of the podcast Working Drummer. My name is Matthew Crouse and we are coming to you live from the Drum Pad, which is in Drum Paradise here in Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm Zack Albetta. We're really happy to have you all here today. And right off the bat, we want to send a special thank you to the sponsors that help make this event possible. So huge thanks to Forks Drum Closet, Innovative Percussion, Drum Tax, Aquarian Drum Heads, and of course the Drum Pad at Drum Paradise.
Special thanks to everybody that's here live, and we also want to send a thank you to everyone that's tuning in online. So let's get started. This first guy, we've got a round table of four wonderful players. This guy is a skillful drummer, currently working and touring as the touring drummer for Keith Urban. Other artists he's worked for include Gary Allen, Joe Nichols, Phil Vassar, and Little Big Town. While he was with Little Big Town, he had the opportunity to record on two of their records and work with producer Jay Joyce. He continues to collaborate and record with some of Nashville's top writers, musicians, and producers. Let's give it up for Seth Rausch. All right. We got you right there, man. Awesome.
Next up, best known as a longtime member of the band Better Than Ezra. This guy brings his style and integrity to every situation. In 2007, he became the full-time touring and recording drummer for Grammy Award-winning act Sugarland. He brings his years of recording and engineering experience to use in his own home studio, and in recent years, he's been the drummer for country artist Frankie Ballard. Please welcome Travis McNabb.
This guy excelled at football in high school and college and won 2 state championships. His athletic skills and superb drumming skills continue to inspire. He has worked with many nationally touring country artists that include Love and Theft, David Nail, Casey James, and since early 2015, Little Big Town. Let's give it up for Hubert Payne.
Lastly, rounding out our panel, this guy has built a successful YouTube channel where he covers many topics such as the true life of a side musician, open-handed techniques, alternatives to playing a cajon, which is a really great, funny one, and many other useful videos. As of today, he has over 76,000 subscribers. Harry, you got to give us some of those, man. And is currently the touring drummer for LoCash. He recently came out with his own signature stick, the Dude Stick, right? The Dude Stick. It's been flying off the shelves. Harry Myrie.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to like chest bump. It felt like a basketball.
We're going to get one of those like paper mache working drummer podcasts, and everyone's just going to bust through it on the way out here.
Hubert leads the way.
I wanted
Just
the flames
destroy
and all
it.
that they have at the NFL games, you know, where you run out. And,
That would be cool. Zach, you got it, man.
Okay, so I wanted to start off just by giving each of you a chance to kind of update us on what's going on right now in your life and career. And by way of that, we just started a new year, and I heard somebody say recently that they don't like making New Year's resolutions because you can break resolutions, but they like making New Year's intentions, setting New Year's intentions. So what are your intentions for 2019? Seth first.
For me, I guess it's always the same. Just try to keep being the best drummer I can. But when I'm not doing that, I'm a dad, trying to be the best at home, and always trying to learn, dig a little deeper, and figure out, how to make the groove speak more. Just trying to always learn. It might be something small, but just always trying to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there something specific that you've kind of had in the back of your mind that 2019 is the year?
No, not really.
Good.
Honestly.
That's a good place to be.
I'm kind of open to anything and everything,
Yeah.
So.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
For me, it's not necessarily for the new year. I didn't really have any thoughts about making any changes or doing something specifically different, but something that I think I'm the oldest of the gang here, I'm pretty sure. Or
You're
else
older than Matt?
No.
No?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
Just,
I
I'm
don't
going
know
on.
either. But anyway, the further I've gotten in my career, I've just been fortunate. I've gotten to do a lot of different things in even different genres with different artists, recording, touring, all different kind of stuff. And I've gotten to a place where I feel like I've found a comfort zone of approaching, trying to play music that I love and play with people that I love working with. I feel like I've come to this place in the last handful of years where some of my choices aren't as much informed by finance as much as musical passion, which is why we all started in the first place, and that was my approach in my early 20s when I was starving and living with 5 people in a 2-bedroom house and go to a Mexican restaurant and buy a Coke so you can have chips and salsa for dinner. We all had to do something like that early on to be able to do this for a living. And I can't say that I'm willing to do that again, but somehow or another, the nature of my path has gotten me to a place where I'm trying to go back to the idea of what my approach to the music I was trying to play then was. It wasn't just like, what gig can I get? How much can I make? And yes, I have a home studio and anybody can send me anything, and I don't know that I've ever turned anything down. So, but when you're recording something, okay, I'm doing it right now and it'll be done in an hour. You can deal with almost anything, but especially when it comes to a creative endeavor as a whole, like working on a whole album or an artist you might take a tour with or a permanent gig with. I just feel fortunate that I've have the luxury of thinking of it this way. So I've tried to embrace the idea of thinking about playing music I love with people I love as opposed to just it's a job, And so the further I've gotten on in my career or in the more recent years, I'm trying to approach more and more that way.
So like a van and a trailer with the right people isn't a deal breaker.
No, it's actually true. I mean, I hadn't been on a van tour in probably 20 plus years, and I did one about 1.5 years, 2 years ago with a dear friend, a guy named Stephen Kellogg, and I'd produced some songs for him for a record he did with a handful of different producers, and I did one chunk of it. And he asked me to do a leg of the tour with him, and I did, and in your 40s, doing a van tour is not necessarily easy. We're all pushing our own gear and loading into a trailer and sleeping on a bench seat and whatever. But I love him and I love the music he made, and so yeah, I'll come do it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
For me, 2019, I feel like I'm on fire. I'm really excited about a lot of things that are happening right now, and like the one word that's like super heavy in my spirit is just about being in position, and what that means to me is I'm starting like ministry and training school here in January, and I just want to be in position to help as much as I can. I've been given a lot. Being in position means being the father that I'm supposed to be, being the man that my wife needs. Not the man that I think that she needs, but what she needs, as far as practicing, if I'm practicing to prepare for wherever I can be used, I'm all over the place. You know what I mean? I'm practicing syncopation. I'm practicing jazz because I feel like I have a gift and I just want to be in position to be used and be adequate to be used. So, as far as 2019, man, it's a lot that I'm excited about, but I just feel like I'm on fire, man. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
I feel that from you, man.
Dude, mic check. You knew what the first word was going to be.
Cajon.
I have a... Hey, man, You take that back.
Yeah, why aren't we all sitting on cajones, by the way? They do make good chairs.
The monitor is playing the wrong.
Oh, there. Yep, there it is. There it is.
I'm gonna kick that thing on my way out. Be the best it ever sounded. All right, dude. I have 2 goals this year. One is like basically what Seth already very eloquently said. It's like be present in the work. I just want to do the work this year, man. The last 5 years of my life, I had these really regimented goals that were about climbing, and they were about things that I don't have. The goal this year is to not be so absorbed in those external things. I want to be right here, and I want to do the work, man. I just want to be great at what I'm doing. Number 2 is I want to give it away. Like I've had like a couple of very self-absorbed years here. All of us who get on stage, man, it's like we're trying to. Okay, I won't speak for you guys, but get on stage trying to like fill this. Like get attention and be praised and all this
You
stuff.
can speak for me. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. I know I'm not alone. Dude, man, I just kind of want to give it away this year, man. I'd rather, and you said a version of this a second ago, like much more beautifully. Like, I'm fine. I'm so spoiled right now. So let me kind of turn to helping everybody else out. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Those are the 2.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. We want to get into. Zach and I sat down today and fine-tuned some things, and one of the things that keeps coming up in our podcast over and over is the importance of listening, the importance of understanding the history of our instrument, the history of music, how it applies to what we do, whether we're touring or playing on the weekends or recording or whatever, understanding the history. I just want to throw that out there to anyone, and if we can expand upon that, the importance of listening to music, importance of knowing music history, drummers, recordings.
Anybody jump in?
Well, I think it's obviously it's valuable to us to learn as much as we can. Partly because you'll learn approaches, literal chops, or ways of playing things, but also just mindset, musical ways to tackle a given type of song or whatever. Those things are good, but I also think particularly in recording situations, but it happens on touring stuff too, although a lot of times that music's already more established. You're kind of learning something that exists. But in recording situations where you're hearing a rough sketch of something and you're coming up with ideas quickly, that's usually a conversation amongst all the people involved, at least on a session. Now there's so many sessions where you're by yourself. But even then, someone who sent you an email with the rough that you're going to cut to, whether it's that or in the room, they're very likely going to reference something. It may be an exact recording, or it may be a certain artist or a certain drummer, and they're trying to tell you a vibe. They might not be saying, listen to this exact song, I want this tone like this. They're trying to communicate an approach. And so the more you already understand that, the better off you are. It's valuable as a communication tool as much as it is valuable for literally learning how to do certain things,
Yeah, I think like similar to what Hubert said, not only at the drum set, but it's being ready. It's the more players you're familiar with, the more genres of music you have more to pull from. And in today's age, it's great because in an instant, if there's something you are not familiar with, you can get familiar with it literally like in 3 seconds, But the more knowledge you have, I think the more in a timely fashion you can pull from it.
Well, and also it can even lead you to introduce something into an equation that isn't obvious. It may be your own something you loved or something that's part of where you come from. At one point we were recording a Jennifer Nettles record, and it was pretty pop country approach, really pop approach, and it was with Dan Huff, and And this one breakdown section, I'm like, what if I did a second line kind of thing? And because I'm from New Orleans. And Dan said, well, what do you mean? And I played it for him, and he's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, do that second, that thing, whatever. Like it wasn't something that was part of his vocabulary, but I'm introducing this thing, and it worked in that little chunk, and it made sense in the moment, but that's just because that's part of, so I think that on one hand, learn and know as much as you can. On the other hand, really focus on the things you love, the things that move you, because that's part of what will make you distinctly you. And that's part of what you'll get calls for. And you might not get other things you could have gotten, because ultimately I think it's, at least this is my mentality. It's not necessarily my advice to everyone, but I just prefer the idea of players with personality and with character, and you bring a certain thing to the table, and hopefully it's pretty wide and you can fit in a lot of circumstances. But at the same time, if there's kind of things you're known for, I think it's more interesting and more valuable and just cooler. It's just a cooler approach, and you're going to wind up doing things you love more. If you focus on learning the things you love and that speak to you, that's what's going to come out of you, and you're going to enjoy your process more. You're going to enjoy the work you do more, the things you get called for.
I think not enough drummers lean into that. Like what you listen to and how you listen informs the kind of drummer you are. And I think often drummers, like I've been guilty of this. I turn my ears off. I turn off what my ears want to do. And you spoke up for yourself. Like my ears want to do a second line here. That's what they're hearing.
Right.
And I think a lot of drummers, for whatever reason, don't speak up that way and don't speak on behalf of their ears.
Yeah.
I just want. There's some beauty. I got a friend back there, Keo Stroud. This is a great story. I called him. I called him when I was younger, and I said, Keo, I'm tired of taking drum solos at weddings during the Soul Train line, and I wanted to play for artists, And I said, Keo, do you really like country music, man? He's like, dude, are you serious? Absolutely. And his advice to me was, dude, when you go back, because he's a history buff, he loves history. He's like, go back, listen to Paul Lime, listen to Chris McHugh, listen to the guys, understand the music by like each decade. When you do that, you'll have an appreciation for it, and people will hire you when they can feel the love from what you're playing, right? So there's a lot of guys, a lot of my African American brothers, they always hit me up and they're like, man, like, how did you get into the country thing? And I would say what he advised me to do was go on Broadway, and I played like tons of shifts down there and meeting people and listening, because that helped me go back, learn the history of like what are the top 40 songs, learn them, what are these guys really doing. Like when I play with Shannon Forrest, can I sit in the pocket like he's sitting? Why are they playing a hi-hat like that? Why? And that analytical approach actually led me to searching Seth out. And I met Seth in like a mobile home, like at a fair one day. And I was like, bro, could I ask you questions for like an hour? And after we start talking about how to keep marriage.
No.
So do you have
Get out of my mobile home.
My secrets.
After he told me how to have 10 kids and keep a marriage.
And you're working on that.
I am. I knew his whole game. Like I knew that Seth, he likes to use like the last 16th of a beat to like come into the backbeat, and like I asked him 1,000 questions because I studied him, like just like Keo told me to, and that led to a great relationship and some referrals for a nice gig that changed my life. So the history is important, and it matters. It matters.
And it sounds like listening to all that stuff raised a bunch of questions for you.
Absolutely.
It was all why this, why that, how that, and answering those questions, getting those questions answered. It's not just about learning to do that thing. It's about learning why to do that thing.
Yep, and then that becomes your marketable skill, because we can't forget. Well, a lot of us, this is our business. You can't forget that. So you're building your business, right? And why are people going to call you? The deeper you have a history that adds to you, that gives you value, that gives more reasons for people to call you. Like for me, my wife deserves me to be able to perform on a high level and provide for us. So I have to be able to know like the top 40 R&B stuff, so I can go play with my friends that play that. I got to be able to go on Broadway and do that. If I get a country gig, I got to be able to do that. So the history matters all across the board. But, yeah.
I had a question. We have some individual questions, and this kind of ties everything in. I had this set aside for you, Travis. It was, how does one maintain a level of integrity in their drumming style and still create the trust that's needed to be a marketable side musician for hire? And I think you all have answered this so far, is you do what you do best. And when you do what you love, it comes across in a really passionate and loving way, and people pick up on that.
I think that's true. I think a key is if you're taking an approach you love, that's obvious. And even as ultimately we are in the service business, we're work for hire for the most part, what we're talking about here, and there is a boss, so to speak, and you want to please them. But I think so. Even in a moment where, as a listener, would you buy this record? Is it something you love? Even when the answer may not be yes. If they've hired you, I personally believe you owe it to not only them, but to music, to yourself as someone who's chosen to do this, to believe in it at that moment. Whatever it is about that piece of music, find something to dig in and focus on, even if it's the mechanics of how you play this feel, or the lyric, or I love the chord changes, or I love the groove, whatever it is, even if it's not the whole picture, hunt for something to be passionate about in that moment while you're doing it. Because that registers. People know that. They sense that, I believe, and that makes you valuable, I think.
Harry's crushing on you so hard right now.
Edit that out.
No, it was like you were watching him play. You were like, yeah, man.
It's live, bro.
It felt that way.
Moving on.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask each of you to talk a little bit about your biggest physical challenge right now and your biggest psychological challenge right now, and how you're dealing with them.
If anyone has an answer first, jump in. I'll rack my brain on this one.
I do have one that I'm fighting right now, so I would welcome any of your help with this. I get into a bad habit of, and so this is physical and psychological in my playing. If I can't hear the kick drum well, I wind up playing it way too hard.
Yep.
I wind up, just jamming the beater into the head, and even holding it there. Especially in the last couple of years, I've been playing a 26-inch drum with no hole and very little muffling, so it's got a lot of bounce back. And I'm bad habit, self-taught, always been a bury the beater guy. So on that drum, you kind of have to. If you're not letting it off, you got to hold it in, or you're getting a lot of bounce back. And I've just developed this thing where I've got way too much. A, I'm playing it too hard. B, too much tension, too much wrapped into my right leg that's messing with everything else. That's my battle at the moment. It's a mental one as much as a physical one, because I've played most of my career without that issue at all, and all of a sudden it's a thing in the last year. So I welcome help from anyone.
I would say, as a general rule, that's the same, but across the board, just trying to mentally I always feel like I get done playing a gig and I accuse myself of playing too hard. I mean, all of my heroes, I think in my head I feel like, man, everyone thinks I'm bashing right now. You know what I mean? I don't ever want to come across that way.
You never do from this listener.
Well, like all my heroes.
Smooth as silk.
Thank you. Gad, Carlos, Jeff, they just always had this. Even Vinny, you see him playing a festival in front of 200,000 people, screaming and with brushes, and it's like, bro, what do you?
How are you that relaxed?
But he's in it.
How?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Just like, you want to put on a show and you want to be in the moment, but.
And
as
you
we get older,
and you also get into a little bit of an attack mentality, or we got to do, it's time to rock.
You want to play angry. I mean, in a good way. Like you want to go after it, but mentally and physically be relaxed. And so that's, to be able to give the groove and the energy of the show everything. But because everyone's had those nights. You've had the nights where you're like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I have blisters still? And then you have those nights where the mix just speaks to you in a good way, and all night long you get done and you're like, wow, I feel like I didn't even. It's trying to hone in on that.
It's unfair how much what you're hearing affects whether you relax or not. But
Totally.
It just does. It does so much. So everything you can do to control what you're hearing, it helps. And still you still are fighting it sometimes, but it does help.
Yeah.
I think for me, physically, I spent like most of my life in great shape, and I'm not right now. So, I'm just like, man, I don't feel comfortable. My posture's not right. But part of it is I have 4 kids under 6, and it's really hard to break away and go to the gym sometimes. But I'm just doing something about it. So I changed my diet, So I am doing something about it, and I'm on the road. Mentally, we're in the studio with Little Big Town right now, and they could have anyone there they want. They can call Seth back if they wanted to, and it's this line and it's a push pull of how much of myself can I incorporate right now, because right now the demo is just a acoustic guitar and a vocal, and I can literally lay any beat that I want, right? But there's a line, because I can't go straight funk Hubert, like I would like to do all the time. But what I'm figuring out is I've created my own situation that's my band where I can get all of my ideas out. I think we all struggle with how much of my ideas. You should play every gig for the gig, and learn the temperature from your boss, and just do your job and speak when you need to, and then go home. It shouldn't be like you're driving home and like, I can't express myself. If you want to express yourself, you got ideas, make a situation and express yourself. So that's my mental battle. But yeah.
The Hubert Payne Band.
Yeah, well, it's called The Network.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Network of pain.
Or that.
Harry?
Plug it, man. Where can we find the network?
January 27th at the 5 Spot, first show.
Beautiful.
All right.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
Dude, I relate to like so much of what you guys each said. Very funny hearing this come out of your mouth, Seth, because I came up when you did this thing at the drum pad up here. They set up drums. Seth did a clinic. If y'all don't, you're all here, so you know the deal at the drum pad, but they do these clinics up here that, like, multiple of them have changed my life. I came to Keo's. I came to Seth's. Anyway, this dude is the embodiment of light touch, but like maximum intensity. That's what I think of your playing.
Yes.
And it's like surgical, man. It's like precise. Anyway, so it's funny to hear you say that, like, you're afraid you're hitting too hard. You know what I'm saying?
He's lying. He's trying to be humble.
He's trying to make us feel better.
I really do hit too hard. I can, especially when I get nervous. Like first rehearsal in a new situation a few nights ago. Okay, the artist is in the room now. I spent the last month and a half working up their 90-minute set, and I'm fine, and I'm in the flow. And the minute the artist shows up and I'm all self-conscious, this is one of these 4 on the floor tunes, 2 bars in, just burning pain. Just burning pain, like I'm kicking for my life. So I'm nowhere close on that. I need to work on that.
Good luck, because obviously he and I are still trying to conquer it too.
Dude, well, I meant to say this, Travis. Because your instinct is mine too. Then you bury the beater, right? Call Dave Elich if you don't know him.
I don't know him, but this is what I hear from everyone about him.
Dude,
mechanics, he's the man, right?
Right. He fixed me right up, and I don't have a good enough ear for this, but he claims even like that kind of in those bigger rooms that kind of opens up the low end.
It
of your
does.
sound too.
It definitely. Yeah. No. If you can not keep it in there, your tone will be better for sure. Yeah.
I take his word for it. I take your word for it.
Yeah.
We've all messed with like, okay, I've been burying the beater for the last 25 years. Today I'll stop. And then 5 minutes in you go, this is hard work. I'm already functional as a drummer. Right. Never mind. Yeah. But Dave was the key for me, and like, yeah, he'll give you steps, man. You know what I mean? So like, I'm actually on my way to that. Call Dave.
I got forced in. I'm a Barry the Beater guy too, and just real quick, I when we made the first LBT record, the kick drum that we were really digging, it was what it was, and I could not bury the beater on that thing because it would sound like crap, and so I was forced into just getting in that place where you find your new intensity, where maybe you're up a little higher or a little bit back on the pedal, where you feel more weight and you can, and so. Yeah, I can relate to that,
And that's I've been able to do that in a situation like this. House kid at this studio is crazy. Okay, I can find a way to play it. I can find a comfort zone today. But then to carry that on in your playing is what I would think, or at least it's been more difficult for me. I don't know if you've been able to do that or not, but
a little bit. Yeah.
Guys, we have a question from a podcast listener who actually we didn't expect to be here, but she actually was able to make it tonight. So I'm excited to be able to ask this question on behalf of Steffi G. As a musician, whether out on tour or in the studio or just throughout your time in the industry, what is one mistake you've made in your professional career that you swore you would never repeat again, and what have you learned since then?
Man, I have an opportunity to really embarrass myself right now.
We're ready.
Okay. I'll give you guys a chance to think of like a good answer. Okay. Okay, my first trip around the world was playing in a rock band. All right, there's a certain culture to that. There's certain fraternizing going on, you might say, after the shows, Some of those instincts. I shouldn't be admitting this into a microphone, okay? But I'm trying to be helpful, all right? Some of those instincts carried with me when I moved to Nashville, man. It's like you meet... you just meet some hyper interactive people, I'll say. you meet some attractive people, you know what I mean? It's like man, in my early days here, I'd go running around with girls when I shouldn't have. You know what I mean? It's like that old it depends on the culture of your gig. All right? When you start playing for that size rooms, like you start having infinite access to those things. People like me who are like a loser in school and asking everybody out, getting turned down. When you finally get to this phase in your life where you get that acceptance and you lean into it like it's a drug. Everybody has their vice on the road, but dude, I had to figure that stuff out and realize that like the people around you and that you're working for, they're paying attention to you, first of all. Culturally, maybe that clashes with some of them. Also, it's like a reflection on the people you play for. So I'm not telling anybody to do or not do any of those things, but know that moves the needle. You know what I'm saying? That's not nothing. So I learned that the hard way a few years ago, man, and I'm glad I got it out of the way. You know what I'm saying?
It's important to consider. This is your life. This is what we're trying to do for the rest of our lives, and create a career. So you're right, man.
And it speaks to something we've talked about on the podcast before. Like your employer, whoever that is looking at your skills, your experience, your this, your that, but they're also looking at your judgment as a player and as a human.
She was really hot though, man. Thank you guys for creating a safe space for me to just like dump all my emotional problems on you.
We're supposed to talk about things we've learned from.
Just piggybacking on a part of that. For me, hard lesson. First time I was let go, got fired on a Monday morning, sat on my couch for like 12 hours. But my wife and I just got married, had a baby. But the management called me and they said, Hubert, you're terminated as of right now. And I'm like, why? Because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm killing the gig. I've never been an issue. And she said, the guys just feel like you'd be happier on someone else's bus. And long story short, what I was doing was after we played a gig, I would go straight to my bunk, right? And me being an African American, I'm gonna just be honest because I feel like this can help some people. Me coming from more of culturally a different place, right? It was not I didn't see a lot of common ground, right? I didn't see a lot of common ground, so I just felt like if I just did my job and I killed it and I wasn't an issue, I didn't drink or anything and just get on the bus and go to bed. But it's more to that because you hang more than you play. and I had to find a balance. And it's not about you got to stay up till 3 a.m, but like now I look to find common ground with other people. You know what I mean? And then your friends wind up calling you for gigs, so you really want to find common ground, you know, as you go on. So that was a tough one for me, but I'm glad I got it early on.
And we want to play with our friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I have a story ready.
This is tricky because
Yeah.
if you don't say anything, you're like, oh, you never made mistakes.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I've got some written down here, Seth. If you don't have,
I should have bagged a couple first.
Me and Matt were listing them at lunch. Like,
it's fine. It's totally cool.
This is like the Drummers of Little Big Town reunion podcast. I am full of shame that I have never played for Little Big Town. There are multiple people in the audience that have played for Little Big Town.
It's true. Well, let's do a speed round thing real quick.
So we had just a couple questions that you can give like a one-word answer to that we'll just wrap up with. So starting off with, finish this sentence. If I wasn't a musician, I would be
A dude.
Head football coach of the Detroit Lions.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
That's
I will fix it. I will fix it. I'm telling you, I will fix it.
I like how specific it is.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean,
Back home.
yeah, but not a head
Put
football
people in
coach, not an
position.
NFL football head football
Yeah,
coach of
absolutely.
the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'm impressed. I would probably do something that I do when I have free time anyway. Over the years, the nature of the career we have is ups and downs and whatever. So at some point, through good advice I got, I started investing in real estate. And so occasionally, sometimes that includes rental properties, whatever, but sometimes it includes renovations. And especially being from New Orleans, there are so many old homes there. So I've renovated some 150-year-old houses. And I love it. I really, really enjoy it. So if I weren't doing this for a living, that would probably be it.
If you asked me as a kid, I'd be in the NBA. But now I construction. Yeah, I like to build stuff. I work with wood, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Best thing you ever ate on the road? Anybody? I stumped him.
I think lobster in New England,
Mm.
New Hampshire.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Next time you're in Japan, go to this ramen joint in Hiroshima called Afuri. I can
Okay.
even
Okay.
the end.
I like it. I like it.
This is a very hood response, but I like going to Chicago and eating deep dish pizza.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good call. That's not what I thought you were going to say when you said a hood response.
This is very Gallatin, but
I don't
All right.
have a good answer, but there's so much good.
Well, you're from New Orleans.
I
so
know, that's
nothing can.
yeah.
You know what? I got one more thing. We're gonna to finish this up.
Yeah.
One of the things we were asking, like, can you guys name a city where people should like focus their attention on, where there's hit music and great drummers that we're not really aware of? And you can't say Nashville, New York, L.A., Austin, or Chicago.
New Orleans.
Thank you.
We should have put New Orleans.
We
on
should
the
have put New
forgotten
Orleans
list.
there. But I mean, is there anything that we should, as we reinvest in ourselves as listeners and support the local community and the drummers that we all are supporting? Where are some places we can pay attention to? And I know I'm going to probably miss somebody, but
Does Franklin count?
no. Yeah, sure.
I would say like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've also met some great guys out of Detroit too. But
Yeah.
Definitely Detroit. Absolutely Detroit.
Yeah. Nice.
He's from Detroit.
Awesome. Well, in an effort to keep this moving, we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna say super big thanks to the four
that
of you
was
for
quick.
doing this.
It was
It
quick.
is quick. It is quick. We're just move right along, but I appreciate y'all very much. So, guys, can give it up for this panel as we move on. Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming and being here in
You
person.
cannot drop the mic. Real quick, Zach, what are you sitting on there, man? That's a really sweet-ass throne.
Sweet throne, baby. Yeah. One of our new sponsors is Motion Pro Drum Thrones. And as drummers, I'll get off it and get everybody a chance to get a look at it here. But we put so much thought into all of our gear, and no piece of gear is, I would say, as important to the longevity of your career and the overall health of your of your body and the quality of your playing than your throne. And I just got hip to these thrones. It's a split seat, like a lot of thrones on the market, but it's spring-loaded with these modified bicycle springs. So it allows not only your spine to hang between these two halves, but the spring tension allows what they call reciprocal motion, which basically means the two halves of your pelvis get to move independently, which they will a little bit if they're allowed to. So they feel amazing. Unlike the hydraulic or the memory foam things, they don't just absorb shock. They throw a little bit of energy at you. And I've been playing on this one for 6 months, and it solved quite a bit of issues in my whole upper body, basically from my hips up to my shoulders and my neck. So they're going to be sponsoring a few episodes to come. They're going to be at NAMM at booth number 7436. If you're at NAMM, check them out. And anybody who wants to come give it a test drive at the intermission or after we're done here.
Yeah, we're going to do a quick changeover, but yeah, certainly afterwards it'll be available. And if it can help Zach, who's 7'6",
I'm 8'12", actually.
Yeah. Please check him out. I just want to say we're coming to you live from the Drum Pad here at Drum Paradise here in Nashville, Tennessee. You can go to drumpadnashville.com to rent out practice space, sign up for drum lessons, and get the latest information about upcoming master classes. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to rearrange these. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we're going to rearrange these seats and get ready for our one-on-one interview with Chris McHugh. So we'll be right back.